Hello and welcome back to my MMA channel, where today I'm going to be trying to predict who will be UFC champion of every division by the end of the year. Now, as you can imagine, I've put a lot of thought into this. It's changed a few times based on fights that have been made and fights that have been rumoured, as well as just over time as they do. You know, sometimes you think one way and then you kind of convince yourself of one way the more you think about it. So it's been difficult, as of course predicting the UFC should be. This is probably going to be funny to look back at by the end of the year, because I'm sure I will get some of these drastically wrong. I'm sure there will be a champion on here that no one could have predicted being a champion. I'm sure there will be ones where they get beaten in their first fight of the year, but that's just the way it goes. So we're going to get straight into it, and we're going to start with the women's strawweight division, and then we'll go men's bantamweight, and we'll go women's division, men's division, until we run out of women's divisions. So here we go, women's strawweight. I just feel like after she beat Weili and Joanna twice, I don't really see anyone else in the division that right now, at least, is on her level. When I look at the rising contenders in the division, I don't think there's anyone that's going to be there ready to challenge Rose properly by the end of this year. I guess Carla Esparza and Marina Rodriguez are the two you would look at as probably going to be fighting for the belt this year. Probably Carla first, I would imagine, and then potentially Marina Rodriguez. But I would have Rose as a strong favourite in both of those fights, especially with the form that she's been on. I am less confident in this than the Thug Rose pick, just because I think that flyweight, there are other people that are on Brandon Moreno's level. Like, it seems crazy to me that I'm picking Brandon Moreno to go through the whole year without losing a fight, and yet his first fight of the year in a couple of weeks' time is against Deiveson Figueiredo, who I felt very 50-50 about in that second fight, and Brandon Moreno swept the floor with him. But it still seems crazy to count Figueiredo out. Like, the guy is an incredible fighter. And the other big threat for me is Askar Askarov. That guy is chomping at the bit. Obviously he's got a fight coming up with Kai Kara-France, which I would expect him to win. Kara-France is great as well, so if he comes through that, then that's a tough test for Brandon Moreno or Figueiredo. But Askar Askarov is the one. I think he's the one that people really have to look out for. He could really spoil the party, because whoever wins this huge third fight between Moreno and Figueiredo is going to have loads of momentum. I think Askarov can come and steal that, but I've gone for the storybook. I've gone for Brandon Moreno. Women's flyweight division, easiest pick of the bunch, if we're being honest. Valentina Shevchenko to end the year as champion. The only way I can see her not being champion is if she vacates this title for some reason, which we'll talk about maybe a little bit later. This worries me a little bit because I've done 4 picks and no belts changing hands, which is not going to happen. It's just not. The UFC does not work like that. But Petr Yan's one of the ones I'm very confident on this list in. We've already seen him beat Jose Aldo and Corey Sandhagen pretty convincingly. I thought that he was beating Aljamain Sterling convincingly at the time of the illegal stoppage, well, disqualification. So I would imagine that Petr Yan will come through that fight, and I can see him fighting probably TJ Dillashaw as well this year, who I think he beats as well. And when I look at the rest of the division, I just think Petr Yan is another level, to be honest. I think TJ Dillashaw will be a tough fight for him, just with the mix of the wrestling and the striking. But Petr Yan, I think, honestly, we are going to be talking in a few years about Petr Yan being one of the best fighters we've ever seen in the octagon. I think he is that good. I'm not saying resume-wise. Obviously, he's not been a big name in the UFC for very long, but I'm talking skill for skill in terms of how good he is at grappling, how good he is at reading a fight, how good his striking is. I mean, unbelievable. So Petr Yan is my pick to retain the bantamweight title throughout 2022. Okay, women's bantamweight. This one, I feel like is not usually a big one. You go Amanda Nunes, next category. But now it is because of Juliana Pena. She's blown the whole thing wide open. And with that in mind, I've gone for Valentina Shevchenko. I think Shevchenko has been waiting for this moment to get her hands on the bantamweight title. So here's how I'm kind of seeing this play out. I think Nunes will probably take some time off, come back, and I think she does beat Juliana Pena in the rematch, if we're being honest. And after that, I just don't see another challenge out there for Amanda Nunes. So I think that Shevchenko fight will happen again. Third fight, obviously, it'll be for Nunes' title because Nunes won't want to go down or meet a catchweight. She will want Shevchenko to come up to her, most likely. And I just think Shevchenko, that's what Shevchenko has been building towards this whole time, is beating Amanda Nunes and becoming a two-weight champion. Whereas Amanda Nunes, after reclaiming that belt from Juliana Pena, I don't know what else is there for her, if we're being honest. Obviously, another win against Shevchenko is big, but does it really add to her legacy more than the two before? I don't really think it does. So with that in mind, I give Shevchenko the slight edge in their third fight, and Valentina Shevchenko to become a double champion sounds very good to me. So there you go. For me, this is one of the divisions where there are two people who are better than the rest. I'm, of course, talking about Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. That's not to say there aren't other great fighters in this division. Of course there are. There's so many great fighters at featherweight right now, but I just think that Max Volkanovski, I've just combined them into one person. Imagine how scary that would be. I think that they beat any of the other people on their day. That's kind of the only reasoning behind that. So Volkanovski has just been announced he's going to be fighting Korean Zombie. I think he beats Korean Zombie. I love Korean Zombie, and it would be absolutely incredible to see him lift that world championship. But I think Volkanovski gets the job done. I think he's a really good matchup for Korean Zombie, to be honest. I think it plays into his hands quite well. So for me, this all comes down to the trilogy fight between Max Holloway and Volkanovski. And I don't know. I've got to pick Max. I thought Max won the second fight. Personally, I thought he got it 3-2, so that's obviously a big tell for me, because I think Max can do that again. Hopefully put more of a stamp on it to win those rounds for sure. But also, Max Holloway is such a good fighter that I can't see him losing 3 fights to one person. I just can't wrap my head around that. So even though I rate Volkanovski massively, I just feel like it has to happen at some point for Max Holloway. Bear with me because I know it's a bit of a cop-out not putting it on a champion, but here's my reasoning. Amanda Nunes is kept busy because she's taken some time away and she's coming back to fight Juliana Pena, and then I think the Shevchenko trilogy makes sense if she does beat Pena for that belt. And I don't see, there's no contenders there right now. Of course, the thing that everyone is going to be talking about when it comes to that division is Kayla Harrison, who will be coming over from the PFL very soon. So I was tempted to put it on Kayla Harrison, but I don't think Kayla Harrison will be fighting Amanda Nunes. I can't see her coming straight over from the PFL and straight into a fight with Amanda Nunes. Maybe she will, but I don't know. It seems a bit weird to start her off with Amanda Nunes in the UFC and potentially kill any momentum she has, like, from the start. So I think Kayla Harrison will fight for that belt. Just not this year, because there's no one there really for her to fight. So I think if Amanda Nunes does vacate the title, or maybe they'll do an interim title fight at some point, and then eventually that belt will become Kayla Harrison's. Of course, the next fight that you're probably going to be looking at for that title is going to be Charles Oliveira Justin Gaethje, which is an incredible matchup that I do not know how to pick. Luckily, I don't think I need to pick it in order to make this prediction. I've of course gone with Islam Makhachev, who I personally would pick to beat Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje. Don't get me wrong, him versus Oliveira and him versus Gaethje are incredibly tough matchups, and I think both of them give Makhachev a real test. But I would slightly edge towards Makhachev in either of those matchups, so luckily I don't have to pick who wins out of Gaethje and Oliveira, which is a nice little cop-out for me that saves me a lot of thinking. Obviously, again, this could go so easily out the window because his first fight of this year is going to be against Beneil Dariush, who is also an incredible fighter. And it just feels like it's happening, doesn't it? It feels like we've been waiting long enough and it's been slowly building. And now, after the year that he had last year, we are at the point where Islam Makhachev is ready to take over this division. So that is what I'm going with. Okay, welterweight. This one's tough because not only have you got Kamaru Usman potentially fighting Leon Edwards next, which I think is going to happen, and I rate Leon Edwards massively. I've been waiting for him to get a title fight for so goddamn long. But Of course, you've got Khamzat Chimaev waiting in the wings, and no one really knows just how good he is. We've seen him dominate every opponent he's come up against, but we've not seen him face, in my opinion, an elite level fighter yet. Obviously, that will change once he goes in there with a top guy, and if he's able to do what he's been able to do to everyone else, then hindsight is a beautiful thing. But I'm going to go with Kamaru Usman just off of what I know. I think that he will beat Leon Edwards, which pains me to say it, but ever so slightly I'd lean Kamaru Usman in that fight. And without seeing Chimaev against another top guy, I can't just assume that he's going to do what he did to Xing Liang against a guy like Gilbert Burns. I can't just look at that and go, yeah, if he can do it to him, he can do it to Gilbert Burns, he can do it to Kamaru Usman. At middleweight, yes, it is another champion who I believe is going to retain his belt throughout the next 12 months. I'm talking, of course, about the last style bender, Israel Adesanya. For me, again, this is the same as the Holloway and Volkanovski thing, where I think Adesanya and Whittaker are the two best middleweights by some distance right now. So it really comes down to their big rematch, which personally I can't find a way to pick Robert Whittaker in that fight just from what happened in the first fight, how good Adesanya has been since at middleweight. I know that Whittaker has put together a good win streak. Till, Cannonier and Gastelum, very impressive. But I just think Adesanya is another level above Whittaker even. So I've gone with him to keep hold of that belt. I can't really see who he's going to fight after Robert Whittaker. Maybe the winner of Jared Cannonier and Derek Brunson, but I can't say either of those fights particularly get me excited. Obviously, Cannonier already lost to Robert Whittaker, and Derek Brunson already lost to Adesanya, so it's kind of a tough sell. So I don't really know what's going to happen with this middleweight division. What I do know is that I think Israel Adesanya is the best of the division. The reason I've gone with Magomed Ankalaev is because I can't pick who's going to win out of Glover Teixeira and Yuri Prochaska. I think that is such a close fight to call. I don't know what's going to happen with this division. However, I think that Ankalaev has the best skill set when you look at potential matchups. And what I mean by that is I don't know who he's going to fight after Thiago Santos, but what I do know is he's so well-rounded that he can adapt to different opponents. And so if I was going to pick one person to emerge from... Because I think all these light heavyweights are in and around the same level. Ankalaev, I feel like, probably has the most room to build on how good he is right now. But I think if you put them all into a tournament, because of Ankalaev's style and how well-rounded he is, I think he would be the one that would win the most matches. It's essentially what I'm getting at, which I know is a weird way to put it, but I'm going with Magomed Ankalaev. I can see him fighting the winner of Yuri Prochaska and Glover Teixeira, maybe on the same card that Islam Makhachev fights for the belt. That would make a lot of sense. But yeah, Magomed Ankalaev is my pick. Okay, we are rounding it out with the heaviest division in the UFC. Of course, we are talking about the heavyweights. Belt currently held by Francis Ngannou, but I am going with his former training partner and countryman, I was about to say Francis Ngannou again, Ciryl Gane, to take the belt off of him on the very first pay-per-view of the year. This is so tough to call because this huge fight, this huge unification is just round the corner. So I'm having to predict a fight that is like 2 weeks away and then the rest of the year as well. But I think Ciryl Gane will beat Francis Ngannou. It's so tough because if anyone can catch Ciryl Gane and put him away, it is Francis Ngannou. But I also think if there's one man out there who can avoid that power for 5 rounds, it probably is Ciryl Gane. Such a good fight. I cannot wait for that fight. But I'm going to pick Ciryl Gane. I don't know who Ciryl Gane is going to face if he becomes champion. My money would be on Stipe Miocic to get another chance at belt. And maybe John Jones. That's a tough grey area though, because who can predict what is going to happen with that man? I would pick Ciryl Gane over Stipe Miocic for sure. And John Jones is a tough one. I think I would probably edge towards Ciryl Gane in that matchup as well, just because I've not seen John Jones compete as a heavyweight yet. And Ciryl Gane is a proper huge heavyweight that moves fast already. So this isn't a guy who's coming up like John Jones will be. This is a natural heavyweight who moves fast. So I've gone with Ciryl Gane just because I pick him only slightly in some of these matchups, but I favour him in all of the matchups that I can see happening for him this year if he is to beat Francis Ngannou on this first pay-per-view of the year. Thank you for checking out this video, my predictions for who I think will be UFC champions by the end of the year. Let me know which ones you agree with, disagree with. If you've got picks of your own, let me know, and hit subscribe because I'm going to be producing content on this channel every week. Until the next one, goodbye.